Good morning. I'm Pastor Jeremy Combs, and we're pausing for a proverb. We're going to finish out chapter 1 today. We're going to look at Proverbs chapter 1, verses 31, 32, and 33. We start with 31. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. This verse reminds me of the legendary story of King Midas. Remember, he was granted the wish in which whatever he touched would turn to gold. He rejoiced as he walked through his gardens and touched trees, and they turned to gold, and he touched his roses, and they turned to gold, and he was just ecstatic until he went in to eat. And as he went to pick up his food turned to gold. He hugged his daughter, and his daughter became gold. You see, King Midas got what he wanted, and then he realized he didn't want what he'd gotten. Here we find with the foolish person, they are filled with the fruit of their own ways, and they become filled with their own devices. And there's two that are mentioned specifically in verse 32. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. So you have the simple and you have the fool. Ultimately, the simple is destroyed by success, and likewise the fool as well. The simple, if you just, pat them on the head, let them continue on their way, or even if you say that's not right and they're so simple-minded they're not going to listen, they're going to eventually just be destroyed by going their own way. The fool is destroyed when he receives success because he cannot handle it. So today we've got to be careful that we don't let success be our undoing as the fool. And we've got to make sure that we're not just continuing along our merry way, oblivious to especially wisdom as the simple person. Be wise. And then we end out the chapter in verse 33, but whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely and shall be, I love this last phrase, quiet from fear of evil. As we conclude Proverbs chapter 1, it concludes with a commendation for the saint. How does the saint achieve these rewards? Well, obviously, as wisdom comes into our life, we've got to listen, we've got to learn, and then we have to live it out. The commendation here for us, that what we're commended to do, is we need to hearken. Now, that word hearken in Hebrew says, it means this, to listen intelligently. Have we all not been guilty at one time or another of not listening intelligently? Take the proverbial example of, gentlemen, you're watching your football game and your wife says, I want to tell you something. And out of expediency and somewhat out of respect for your wife, you say, go ahead, but you're not really giving what she's telling you 100%. You're watching the ball game, picking up a little, and eventually it's frustrating because she picks up on it. You don't pick up on what she's saying. You haven't listened intelligently. We can be guilty of doing this in church. We come to church and, our minds are running many different directions and we're not honed in on the Word of God. Now, if we listen to God, He promises us two things. He promises us refuge and rest from evil. Notice, He doesn't promise us that bad things aren't going to come into our life, that problems aren't going to arise, but He does promise us safety. The word safety can also be translated refuge or a place of security. And so He promises us refuge and then rest, a quiet from fear of evil. I think of that song in children's church we used to sing, with Christ in my vessel, I can smile at the storm. If we listen and obey God, He gives peace and rest in the midst of storms. So I don't know what you're going through today, but as we round out chapter number 1, let's listen intelligently to the Word of God, and He will give us a place of refuge in time of trouble, and He will give us rest in the midst of evil. Make sure today you smile at that storm. God bless you. We'll see you next time.